Welcome back. S.K. Ali's debut novel, Saints and Misfits, follows a Muslim American teen named Janna Yusuf. Janna is a sophomore in high school who is struggling with balancing her family, friends, school, and her crush on a boy who is not Muslim. The book also tackled some very difficult issues such as sexual assault and the internal struggles and challenges of Muslim girls who choose to wear a hijab or not. Let's explore these issues and the story of Janna Yusuf with the author herself, S.K. Ali. Sajida, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm totally fangirling and I'm very excited to have you on. So let's get started. Tell me a little bit about the title of your book and how it relates to the overall story that you painted in this amazing book.
Okay, so in Saints and Misfits, Janna Yusuf is the 15-year-old Muslim American teen, and the title comes from her love for Flannery O'Connor, the Southern Gothic American writer, who really, she was a person of faith, but she really called out people who were, you know, self-righteous or holier than thou in her stories. So it's just a play on the saints, the pretend saints.
The idea,
and, yeah, the idea of like being looked at as saintly, but not having that like really come through in who you are.
Yeah.
And then Misfits and just these characters that she had, Flannery O'Connor had in her stories, and how Janna kind of distills what's going on in her life and just like sees the world through those labels, like the saints in her life, the real saints, the misfits, and in this case there's a monster in the story. So that's where the title came from.
I'm tempted to ask more about the story, but I don't want to give it away to our viewers who haven't read it, so we'll leave it at that. Now tell me, you know, I read the novel, and I know that you do an excellent job of addressing some of the issues that the Muslim community tends to shy away from. So we'll talk about those issues in a bit, but was that something intentional on your part, where you sat down and you were like, okay, these are all of the issues that are important and I want to address them, and that's how you came about it, or was it more of a natural process?
It was more of a natural process because I didn't want to set out to like, you know, have like these talking points, or it wasn't like in an essay. So it was something that was very natural, and I really wanted to be authentic. So I knew these were the things that, you know, people talk about in the Muslim community, that they're grappling with as human beings. So that's where it kind of naturally came from. And I think it was just in my endeavor to like make sure that people saw the community as it was from within, and not how it's been portrayed, or how, you know, just the perceptions that people have. It was just to be an authentic writer. I was writing from the space of what I saw around me.
And so, I think that also kind of normalizes the issues the Muslim community faces, because the issues that you talk about are ones that any community can relate to. So let's get into one of the, I think, very important issues that actually is very, a lot in the media right now with the Me Too hashtag. And you talk about, you know, Janna goes through an experience of sexual assault, and she's trying to grapple that in terms of her feelings of shame, but then also sort of just rage and anger. So how did you, you know, sort of break that out for us and that issue?
Well, I've used the label unapologetic Muslim that Linda Sarsour often uses, and I use that because to say that as humans, Muslims have the same kind of issues and ills as everyone else, and so I think it's time that kind of we examine our issues on our own and through our lens. And because a lot of times anything that's going on that's hard or challenging in our community, it's when it's done with an outside lens, it's often attributed to, you know, our difference, or, you know, our identity as Muslims. And I wanted to look at these issues from a space of from a spot of like, what does it look like from within our community, but it's part of like what's going on, you know, globally, like, you know, women coming forward saying that they've experienced sexual assault, and it's something that's like plagued different communities throughout time. So I wanted to like look at it from a view of like a girl who doesn't push away her identity to look at, to find her voice in this, in her journey of healing. So that was like where I was coming from, and just to be the ones to look at our own issues. Like so, there's a whole movement called Own Voices in publishing, which is about like people of marginalized identities writing their own narratives, and that was part of like an own voice. Well, Saints and Misfits is an own voice narrative, looking at these different aspects of your identity. So there's the Muslim identity, and as a woman, like Janna's, a young woman, and she's gonna be going through the things that young women go through in America, as as an American. So that was where I was coming from, that intersectional aspect. That so it's not happening to her because it didn't happen to her because she's Muslim. It happened to her because she's a woman.
A girl.
Yeah.
So the obviously the issue of sexual assault and sort of dealing with it as a woman is a very important issue. Now going from that a step further, you almost, even with that issue, for example, it's an issue that the Muslim community doesn't talk about, but you sort of normalize the Muslim image, if you know what I mean, right? Like she goes through this experience, which everybody, unfortunately, in our community, young women, Muslim, non-Muslim, do experience and go through and sort of learn to deal with that. You give her a non-Muslim, older character who she's able to really relate with, Mr. Ram. You talk about a niqabi ninja. You don't hear about that. There's the Bill 62 debate going on right now where you have niqabis, and that's not the image. So how do you think these issues sort of give light and address, Islamophobia, for example?
Yeah, so like I think in writing the story, I was, when I said that I was writing from a place of authenticity, as a Canadian, who grew up in diverse communities, I saw the relationships that people of diversity have with each other. So, and I don't see that highlighted a lot. Like sometimes when we talk about communities, it's in terms of like the Muslim community or the Sikh community, or
it's very individualized.
Yes, and so, but what I saw around me was like people, getting to know each other from different communities, and finding commonalities. And so that's why I introduced the Mr. Ram character, because that's what I saw, happening. And so that was that aspect was like, just because in the story, Janna moves around in different communities, like 'cause she has her school community and her neighborhood community. So that was part of that. But for the niqabi ninja, I was reflecting the strong niqabi women that I've met and that I've seen, and like it's really funny to see this other image of niqabi women or covered women that's out there, because it's just like not what I've seen. It's all experience. And so when I see that, a person who covers her face is seen as like oppressed, and not to say that there aren't people who might have been forced to, but from my personal experience, the women that I've met who have chosen to cover their faces, they have been, they've chosen it, they've been strong about it, and so that was where it was just reflecting reality. And so that was why, that was in there, and it was just like a great writing advice is to write with authenticity and with raw experiences. So that was where it was coming from.
And are you hoping this authenticity and the realness that you show to these characters sort of will reflect in the broader community and how we deal with, people, not even diversity in terms of people from other religions and cultures, but diversity even within our own religions, right?
Yes, and that was, there's a lot of different Muslim characters in the book, and there's diversity within diversity that, that we don't often talk about as well. So that was like the diversity of understandings and practice, and how different people are different parts of the journey. And so that was, like a, big kind of survey focus of, like I felt like when I was writing this that often I had to like write so much to fill in what's missing out there, because we don't have these narratives from within the Muslim community. So I was like, oh, I forgot about this, I forgot about that. And it's just it was a lot, and I hope there's going to be more Muslim writers and authors publishing, because we, a few of us can't do it all. Like there's so many stories that we need to
I think
hear.
you did a phenomenal job of tying it all together. So let's talk about the point of diversity and the diversity within experiences. So, Janna, she's a hijabi, quote unquote, someone who covers her hair, but she goes through an experience where she takes off her hijab to, impress a guy in high school. And I know online you said a lot of people had asked you, why did you choose that? So let's put a disclaimer out there. Why did you do that?
Well, I was kind of surprised, because I guess, I'm in my 40s, so I'm not really aware of the kind of changes that's happened in these discussions. Like, I have a daughter, so I see, that she's very strong in her identity as a Muslim, as a visible, covered Muslim young woman. Yeah. But I didn't realize that that there was a shift where it was very, very strong in it defining you as who you were as a strong woman as well. Like, because I was coming from the space of like how a person arrives at their convictions. So like we all grew up with inherited beliefs or values that you inherit from your parents and you're taught. But there's always a point when you examine it and say, wait, do I believe the same thing? And am I going to, is this what I choose for my life? And that happens internally. So that was where I was coming from, because no one's really born with like a cemented strength of beliefs that sustains them and stays true, like, all times and all years and all throughout their life. So there's like, there's the ebb and flow of conviction and belief. So I was coming from that spot of like, okay, what does it look like for a young woman who's worn hijab, because that's what, her mom did, and that's what, she sees around her, and it's natural for her. But then it's still like she's a young woman still, and she's still, grappling with, what if this guy, he likes me because of how I look, and and she's still going through those things. So it's so I was examining like how that comes about, and I think it's still like the book was dealing with her journey with finding her voice, and there's these parallel things happening, and some readers might have said, well, she didn't resolve that part where she's like, now I'm gonna keep it on, or but that's the focus. Like my editor always said, this is Janna's journey to finding her voice, and these are the things that are happening in her life at the same time. It's like a slice of life, narrative. So there's these other things happening, but we don't see everything like to the fullness. And people have been asking me if there's going to be a sequel, because they want to see two people get married that are in the book. But I don't know. Maybe there might be. but I just that's, so we might see more of that journey in terms of hijab and identity and Janna becoming stronger in different ways. So
I think I'll leave it at that, because I'm sure if I ask more questions, I'm going to give away the book. But just as we wrap up, what can we expect? What's your next journey?
Well, writerly?
Yes.
Journey? Okay, so I'm working on a romantic comedy right now. It's a young adult book as well. It's set in Istanbul, but it's seen through the eyes of a Canadian and an American. Okay. And there's a Brit as well. And it's
nice.
like, Muslims from these parts of the world who are in Istanbul. And so there's like an immersive kind of, the historical Muslim aspect of being in a country that, and in a city that's so like significant. So there's that aspect, but it's a romantic comedy. It's like, how do Muslims connect, and like observant Muslims connect, and just and fall in love. So that's I'm excited about that.
I'm very excited too. So hopefully look forward to having you on again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hey YouTube, we hope you benefited from this video. If you liked it, or if you didn't, let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning more, check out some of our other videos. And don't forget to subscribe so you can get new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.